I call Mayor Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I represent Ribble Valley in Lancashire, one of the most beautiful constituencies in the country and one of the most rural in terms of the number of farms on my patch. There are 820 farms on my patch, including 121 dairy farms, who I single out as probably the most passionate and dedicated of farmers that I've encountered. Madam Deputy Speaker, the problem with this motion is that it ignores the wider context of what is happening in our rural economies. Let me talk briefly about how remarkable those rural communities are. Not only are our farmers vital to our food security, but they're often there to do the intangible work that you don't see on a local authority balance sheet, gritting and clearing those smaller roads in winter that councils can't get to, maintaining all those beautiful countryside walking routes that we all get to enjoy for much needed rest. There are endless examples of how farmers are the best examples of the community spirit that we are rightly so very proud of in this country. Let me share a quick story about a farm in my constituency called Butler's Cheese. Butler's produce the famous Blacksteed's blue cheese, and I believe are the second largest producer of cheese in the UK. Last year they suffered a devastating fire which completely destroyed their packing and logistics hub. But what's really remarkable about this company is that they rebuilt a whole building in a few weeks using all the networks of their suppliers around them to help them do that. And that was based on the faith and goodwill that these farming communities engender. They were able to retain the 95 staff that they had, as well as jobs in 20 to 30 local suppliers. Those are the farms that we are supporting and that we need to make sure our strategies work for in the long term. Butlers are a fourth-generation farm that would not be back on its feet today without the relationships and trust that are so embedded in our rural communities. So here's what I'm excited for in terms of what Westminster can and is doing for farmers. We can provide clarity on the mission. One of the best things about this new Labour government is our focus on overall missions for this country, to be able to be clear to farmers and farming communities exactly what the Labour government plans to achieve over this decade of national renewal, with a clear ask to farmers of how they can contribute to that mission and how they can benefit. That level of clarity is what I heard time and time again in campaigning in terms of what farmers hadn't had for years under the party opposite and what they desperately need going forward. I'll give way.
And I fully recognise how much she wants to serve her new constituents there, and I hope she's right. Does she recognise, though, how difficult it's going to be for farmers in her constituency, like in mine in East Wiltshire, to pay this inheritance tax? The fact is that land values are very high. The capital value, the abstract value, can be in the tens of thousands, but the actual income that an acre of land generates can be in the hundreds. So there's an enormous disjunct between the value of the land in the abstract, as far as HMRC are recognised, and the actual money that that farm will generate. How does she think that the farms in her constituency are actually going to pay this inheritance tax?
I welcome my honourable friend's intervention, and as I'll come on to, I think what I would like to talk about today is about the opportunity for increasing that prosperity of farmers, because that should be our mission in what we're doing. So the second thing that I think we really, the opportunity for farmers here is around procurement and trade, using the government's own purchasing power to back British produce so that 50% of food brought into hospitals, army bases and prisons is locally produced. We can protect farmers from being undercut by low welfare and low standards in trade deals, and we're looking to seek a new veterinary agreement with the EU to get our exports moving. And lastly, I just want to touch on devolution and its ability to empower local understanding. Anyone who lives in a rural community knows that part of their strength is a deep generational knowledge and a knowledge of the land and local area. Nowhere is that more evident than in generational farming. Indeed, it is this knowledge passed down through generations and trained into children from the time they can walk that ensures some of the efficiencies that keep our farms going. I'm a huge advocate for devolution, and especially somewhere like Lancashire, where Ribble Valley is located, which includes vast rural areas, because it brings democracy and understanding closer to communities. That is a huge thing that this government are progressing at pace to do right by rural communities. I'm so grateful to all the farmers who've been having open conversations with me about how past and future policy could affect them. I think for any new government, it takes some time to unpick how relationships have worked in the past and how you might want to change them. I came to Westminster as someone passionate about local leadership and devolution, and I think there is much this government can do to help farmers by taking decisions. Yes, that's a good way.
The member for giving way, and she's making a very eloquent speech about farming and the importance that farmers are to our community. There'd be no farmers to actually do the roles that she's indicating, gritting the roads and cutting our hedges and feeding the nation that we live in. She makes a point about devolution. Would she actually agree that Deirdre from my own from Northern Ireland has said that 1/3 of farmers will be impacted by this agricultural property tax? 75% of our dairy farmers will be the hardest hit. It's not working. Stop the family farm tax grab.
Thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and if she'll allow me, I'll come on to in a minute how I think we can help those farmers who will be affected by this in some ways. Just to finish the point about devolution, as an MP in an area that, with huge extensive rural economy, it's critical to me that devolution reflects our rural areas as much as our metropolitan ones, and I look forward to seeing how the upcoming devolution white paper addresses that challenge. I also think that town and parish councils that really understand our rural communities can play a bigger role in the local democracy.
An interesting speech, if I might say so, and I'm grateful for it. She's absolutely right. We should import less food. She's absolutely right. We should use government procurement to help with that. And she's absolutely right about the intergenerational quality of family farms. Will she acknowledge that in delivering the kind of food security that her speech implies, we cannot have farmland, the most productive farmland, eaten up by large-scale solar developments and housing? We need to protect our grade 1, 2 and 3 land for the very reason she gave, that allows us to deliver the food security that she and I both want.
I welcome the honourable friend for his intervention, and I think, as has been pointed out by the Minister, we have faith that many farms won't be affected by this, and it won't have as perverse an impact as the opposite side is leading people to believe. I'd just like to talk about the opportunity that we have here in terms of supporting our farmers. So, as I touched on before, to respond back to the intervention earlier, I have farms in my community who I've sat down with and I have worked through the issues. They're taking their own tax advice, but just an example, we do have a farm that we think is worth around 3.6 million. So they will be liable for around £12,000 a year over the 10 years. But for me, the argument back to that situation is that if we increase that, if that's 12k an extra year, if we can increase that farmer's profits by 20k a year, by reducing energy prices, by increasing British supply procurement so that 50% of public sector food comes from these farms, and by a better health service ensuring that all members of that family can be strong and well to work, that's the opportunity here. Yes, we need to make our tax structures work better. That's fixing the foundations. But the real aim and prize here is increasing the opportunity for farmers so that they have the stability and investment and real sense of purpose and mission that allows them not just to survive, but to thrive. I spoke earlier about the strength and efficiencies that lie in family farming. I want to be clear, though, that from everything I've seen so far and heard from farmers, is that while valuing embedded ways of working and learning are important, there is also much appetite for innovation and doing things better from our farmers. Indeed, just look at the way farms have led the way. Have led the way in restoring biodiversity and diversifying into all sorts of new business ventures. This is not an industry scared of change and opportunity, but the fact remains that so much of this industry relies on and is driven by what government determines is important through subsidies and trade agreements. We must and will do better than the last 14 years of uncertainty around what government wants from farmers. I believe our farms are one of the many lifebloods of this country, along with nurses, teachers and, yes, train drivers too. And I know that farmers in my constituency of Ribble Valley are ready to do their bit to tackle the dire situation we find this country in. I don't know a group more ready to pull up their sleeves and muck in than this lot. And we, as a government, are meeting that energy and will with a similar level of ambition, vision and commitment for how these pillars of our community can work with us to achieve what we all strive for, greater prosperity for every person in the country. The amendment tabled by the motion tabled by the Conservatives today isn't clear or specific on what they would do differently to fix the economy. That, along with the continual lack of clarity and consistency on rural and farming policy when they were in power, suggests to me that they never had a vision for how they would support these communities well. It's so easy to criticise. It's far, far harder to come up with a long-term vision and do the hard graft to make it a reality. I will be voting with the government today. That's not because I don't think we need to push for more understanding of rural communities in Westminster. We absolutely do need a better understanding generally in the UK of the role farms and rural communities play in our culture and our potential prosperity across all parties and those who work for us. But I'm voting with the government today because I think we can better push for that change within a Labour government as part of a wider plan to improve things for everyone. A plan that is truly ambitious for this country, that makes the brave call to take the hard and popular decisions now so that in 10 years something has actually got better for everyone. I'd far rather that than a government who goes for popular headlines today, but in 10 years we're still facing the same challenges we always did and getting worse. I have a lot of faith that tomorrow and over the coming months this Labour government will set out an exceptionally clear and visionary plan for what our rural economies mean to Britain and how we will both respect them and make the most of them by providing long-term stability and a clear route for farmers to contribute to our national missions and benefit from them. Anyone who waited 14 years for a Labour government to come in and start to tackle a quarter of our children living in poverty knows that getting the result you want takes time and hard work. We have been in desperate need. Sorry, I'm just finishing. We have been in desperate need of grown-ups to tackle what's coming down the line, and I trust this Labour government to do that, and I will work hard with them to get it right. And can I finally pay tribute to all the incredible farmers across Ribble Valley constituency for continuing this conversation with me so we can build the strongest possible vision for farming and the rural economy in the UK.